right, good evening, everybody.
That would be nice.
We'll go ahead and call the Personnel and Finance Committee to order. And then Supervisor Eicher is excused, and Supervisor Stubbs indicated she'll be a few minutes late. So, with that, consideration of minutes from October 7th.
Move approval.
Moved by Nelson.
Second.
Second by Chenoweth. Discussion or corrections to those minutes? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. On to fund transfers. We have fund transfer 23, fund transfer request for additional funds for the biogas project. Genset modification, not feasible.
Move to approve.
Moved by Chenoweth.
Second.
Seconded by Nelson. Discussion or questions on this item? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next, we have fund transfer 24, fund transfer request for additional funds for labor, material, and equipment to complete asphalt at the Dane County landfill site number 2.
Move to approve.
Moved by Chenoweth.
Second.
Seconded by Corrigan. Discussion or questions on this item? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Third item is fund transfer 25, fund transfer to Anderson Farm Dog Park.
Move to approve.
Moved by Chenoweth, seconded by Nelson. Discussion, questions on this item? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. That takes care of fund transfers. So we're on to referrals of resolutions and ordinance amendments. The first one is Resolution 219, amending the 2019 operating budget to fund the Dane County Housing Initiative and Comprehensive Plan outreach.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Corrigan, second by Clausius. Discussion or questions on this item? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to recommend approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next is Resolution 232, accepting funds from the John Lucier Charitable Pledge Annuity Trust Fund, amending the 2019 operating budget.
Move approval.
Moved by Nelson.
Second.
Seconded by Clausius. Discussion or questions on this item? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next we have Resolution 248, authorizing the execution of lease in agricultural land at the Dane County Regional Airport.
Move to approve.
Moved by Clausius, seconded by Chenoweth. Discussion or questions on this item?
I move.
Oh, I got it in reverse. All right. Moved by Chenoweth, seconded by Clausius. Discussion or questions? Supervisor Clausius, did you have Chenoweth, did you have a question? Or?
No, I just
Okay,
want to make
okay.
sure we get this.
Just correcting me, okay. Great, thank you. All right, on the motion to recommend approval of Resolution 248, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Now we're on to Resolution 257, authorizing reclassification of the EMS specialist position to a data analyst position and filling a position that has been vacant for over 6 months.
Move approval.
Moved by Corrigan.
Second.
Seconded by, was I thought, Chenoweth.
I'll speak a little longer.
Should be sitting apart. Anyhow, discussion or questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 5 is Resolution 260, agreement for the design, construction, and maintenance of County Highway DM from Morrisville Road to approximately 100 feet southeast of the Yahara Bridge.
Move to approve.
Second. Moved by Chenoweth, seconded by Nelson. Discussion or questions on this item? I had a quick one if there's staff from the department here.
Yes.
Pam, is this reconstruction, construction going to be urbanized at all? Is it going to be curb and gutter? Or is it just sort of rural, no shoulder, just shoulders?
Yes, not all the details were worked out. Last I heard was that they were gonna do an urban section in Morrisonville.
Okay. but there's not going to be any jurisdictional transfer.
No, this is an agreement similar to what we just did with Madison and Fitchburg, where they're going to do the winter maintenance.
Okay, thanks. Okay, there's no other questions or discussion on the item. Thank you. All right, on the recommendation for approval, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next is Resolution 266, agreement for transfer of county right-of-way of the County Highway P reconstruction project to the Village of Cross Plains.
I move approval.
Moved by
Second.
Nelson,
Second.
seconded by Clausius.
Chenoweth.
Sorry, mixed up.
I guess, well, we do look alike. Also, we'll make the check.
Discussion or questions
Throw my voice.
on Resolution 266? Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, on the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Let's see, item 7 is Resolution 288, authorizing a lease with Madison Gas and Electric Company for an electric vehicle charging station at Dane County Regional Airport.
Move to approve.
Moved by Chenoweth, seconded by Nelson. All in favor of the recommendation, signify by saying aye. Oh,
I have a question.
go ahead, sorry, thank you.
What
Supervisor
is,
Clausius.
what is the public going to be charged for use of this station, you know?
Gene Myers at the airport. They are installing it at no cost. There
Is
is,
that my question?
no, I know, they are gonna, there's gonna be a $5 per hour charge for a fast charge. Members of the charging consortium get 50% off of that if they sign up for the prepay.
I saw the reference in the contract about they would be getting a lower fee, but I didn't know what that meant.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions or discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, on to item 8, Resolution 289, reaffirming the 2019 awards for the Affordable Housing Development Fund, and I should let everybody know we have a person that's registered available for information from MSP Real Estate, Mark, and I can't read the last name. Mark? What's
Hammond.
that? Hammond.
Hammond.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Corrigan, second by Chenoweth to recommend approval. Supervisor Clausius, question.
Just a comment, I'm pleased to see that a number of the projects are outside of the city of Madison.
It's good to see you. Supervisor Stubbs.
Thank you. Can I learn some specific information? Are there units allocated specifically for veterans, or are you prioritizing certain units? I don't know if you want to speak, Mark, or if there's representatives from the other units. Can you talk about the allocation? Who are those units placed out for priorities first? We can talk about your unit. Your Mark, what number?
Sure, yeah.
Huxley Street, right?
Yeah, Mark
Okay.
Hammond, MSP Real Estate. So, yeah, we do a MOU with the Dane County Vet Center, and so I think we've set aside around 10 units. That'd be kind of the 30%, which would be kind of the most deeply kind of discounted units for veterans.
What about individuals that are in transition, any specific housing from that list, what's left as priorities?
Yeah, so we have up to 8 through Salvation Army's Dawns or RISE program.
What
And then-
about people with re-entry back into the community?
Yep, so we have, I believe we did 3 on this project, re-entry through Madison Urban Ministry.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
Are there other representatives here for moving out or Gorham or
Uh,
JT Klein?
I don't have any other registrants.
Yeah, Gorman representatives here.
Okay.
May I have some missing questions, Mr. Chair?
Can you let us know?
Register or no?
I have the
After
registration.
you can afterwards. Just tell us your names and your affiliation.
Ted Matcom, I'm the Wisconsin Market President for Gorman Company.
Nicole Solheim, Director of Development for Gorman and Company. So we had 2 applications, one in Mount Horeb and one on the west side of Madison. One on the west side of Madison, Elderberry Place, is a senior housing development for those 62 and over. So as many of you know, we're working with the county on the Valor project on East Washington Avenue that has dry hooch on the first floor. So we will continue to work with them. The Valor project is for prioritized for veteran families. So we think they will be a great referral source for any seniors that work at dry hooch as well. They can give us referrals and services for Elderberry on the west side. And we will also have units targeted in the Mount Horeb project as well for veterans.
And what is the cost for rent? What are you estimating for rent cost?
For rent,
For those
which
units.
one are for those units? The 30% units, I believe,
Depends on your income level.
Sure, so what are you estimating the average person may?
yes.
$800, $700?
So a 1-bedroom 30% unit is about $475. And those are usually the units that we have targeted to the specific populations.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, and a motion to recommend approval of resolution 289. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. On to item 9, resolution 291. Contract change order number 28 to contract for Biofirm USA Inc. for biogas cleaning equipment for pipeline injection phase 3.
Move to approve.
Moved by Chenoweth, seconded by Erickson. Discussion and questions on the resolution. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next, we have resolution 292, approval of the 2020 annual action plan funding recommendations.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Corrigan, seconded by Stubbs. Any discussion or questions on the action plan?
For Lutheran Social Services of Wisconsin, Upper Michigan, what does TBRA mean for activity? I'm not familiar with that term.
Is there anybody here that can answer that question?
I'm on it.
Is it an organization?
It's tenant-based rental assistance.
Tenant-based. Thank you, Brenda. Awesome.
Other questions, discussion? All right, on the recommendation to approve resolution 292, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next, we have resolution 299, authorizing renewable natural gas RNG access agreement to Sand Hill Advanced Biofuels LLC.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Moved by Chenoweth and seconded by Clausius.
No, Claudius has a question.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nelson. Supervisor Clausius has
We
a
all look
question.
Yeah.
We will try to separate next time.
I can wear a name tag. How much are we charging Sand Hill Advanced Biofuels for use of our system?
We're charging them $2.50 per decatherm of gas that they bring in.
Standard rate, I mean, I don't have any.
We're really the first in the nation to have a facility like this. We've seen some great response from the market though. This is the second contract that we're putting through and we're under negotiations with 3 other firms right now.
Okay, good. Nice income, right? Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? On the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 12, resolution 301, authorizing acceptance of a grant from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for wildlife habitat restoration on Dane County Parkland.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Corrigan, seconded by Nelson. Discussion or questions? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next, we have resolution 302, 2019 Park and Trail Flood Repair Grant Awards. And what was recommended to us was sub 1 by Nate Cleaner.
Move approval of sub 1.
Second.
Moved by Corrigan, seconded by Chenoweth, to recommend approval of sub 1. Discussion questions?
I was just wondering why the reduction in the dust.
It was just a typo.
That was just, okay.
That's the total project cost.
They were excited when they saw that typo.
Okay, anything else? Okay, and the recommendation for approval, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 14, Resolution 307, authorizing a purchase of land in the town of Vienna for floodwater storage area.
Move approval.
Second. Moved by Erickson, seconded by Nelson. Let's see, what's in the packet is a sub. Is this? Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's the last one. Sorry. All right, discussion or questions on the item? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next, we have item 15, which is Resolution 311, authorizing a lease at Badger Road for Joining Forces for Families program.
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by, was it Clausius?
Clausius.
Seconded by
This one.
Stubbs. Discussion or questions on Resolution 312? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next is Resolution 313, authorizing acceptance of grant funding at Habitat Improvements.
Yeah.
Am I-
Skip six.
Did I skip one? Oh, I'm sorry, 16, sorry. Resolution 312, creation of compliance and ethics program for Badger Prairie Healthcare Center.
So moved.
Moved by Stubbs. Second. Seconded by Nelson. Discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Now we're on to Resolution 313, authorizing acceptance of grant funding at Habitat Improvements.
Move approval.
Moved by Morgan, seconded by Stubbs. Discussion or questions on this? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 18 is Resolution 314, authorizing the reclassification of a soil and water conservationist to the Land Conservation Program business analyst for the Land Conservation Division of Land and Water Resources Department.
Move to approve.
Moved by Chenoweth,
Second.
seconded by Nelson. Discussion or questions on Resolution 314? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Resolution 315 is authorizing purchase of insurance.
So moved.
Moved by Stubbs,
Second.
seconded by Nelson. Discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 20, Resolution 316, reauthorization of Dane County's self-insured workers' compensation program and purchase of excess workers' compensation coverage.
Move to approve.
Moved by Chenoweth,
Second.
seconded by Corrigan. Discussion or questions? And motion for Resolution 316, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next, we have Resolution 319, authorizing temporary space use agreement for Dane County Extension Financial Education Center at the Village Park.
Move approval.
Moved by Nelson,
Second.
seconded by Stubbs. Discussion or questions on Resolution 319? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next is OA 23, amending Chapter 6 of the Dane County Code of Ordinances regarding compensation of the county board.
Move approval.
Moved by Corrigan.
Second.
Seconded by Nelson. Discussion or questions regarding resolution, or OA 23? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries with Clausius voting no. Next is OA 26, amending chapters 15 and 18 of the Dane County ordinances regarding the authority of the reclassification appeals board.
Move approval.
Moved by Corrigan,
Second.
seconded by Nelson. Recommend approval. Discussion or questions on this item? Okay, I'll just give the explanation. Obviously, we were tasked with looking at the reallocation appeal last time, and this puts it in the hands of the board that considers reclassifications as well. So, all right. Any other discussion or questions on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed saying no. Motion carries. Next is, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, that takes care of OAs and resolutions, so now we're on to items requiring committee action. And the first one of that is action item 189, appeal of reallocation request for printing and services manager. So we have postponed this at our last meeting to give Mr. Patton a chance to consider the criteria used by personnel management, employee relations, I should say, and see if that changes anything he wants to inform us about. In addition, Greg had solicited the help from a member of the review board for reclassifications to sort of give a third-party view of this, and her recommendation after discussing this with all parties, she wrote up a recommendation, and that's included in our packet as well. You had a chance to read that. So since we postponed to give Mr. Patton a chance to look at that, I would like to give him a few minutes to address the committee. Is there anything you want to say outside of inform the committee about outside of what you submitted to us?
I'd like to take a few minutes. I'd like to thank everybody for giving me a few minutes to go over this. I was checking to see if anybody had any questions on the packets that I had submitted, or if anybody had a chance to review them.
The packets are your documents.
My documents that I submitted. If you had any questions on it, otherwise I've read the recommendation from Kate, and I feel like this entire process from the beginning until now has kind of been incomplete, extremely inconsistent, and not transparent. The reallocation, reclassification request is a standard process used. I believe there's some flaws in it. By only looking at other positions at current range, I don't know that a thorough analysis has been provided. If there's higher pay ranges, positions that match up with mine, I took a couple of those positions in M10 and 11, and the M11 pay range that match up very closely to mine, and I think that should have probably been taken into consideration. It was not reviewed by employee relations because apparently it is not part of the current process. They were in the two positions were in the materials I provided, and I also gave them to Kate from the state to review them, but she couldn't take them into consideration because the process doesn't allow it apparently. While I was putting my additional materials together and reviewing the county administration positions, I see a large gap between my position and other managerial positions. I provided a chart with DOA and division heads on that. And I'm one of 5 positions that are head of a division or department, and I'm a minimum of 5 steps below these other positions. Meanwhile, there are plenty of other positions that's shown that are not heads of divisions or in a very much higher pay range. This many steps below, I feel is something that needs to be looked at. My fiscal responsibilities, including generating over $500,000 of non-county revenue per year, that some of the other positions don't have. So I'm looking at the chart, it's kind of like the further up you should be, or you are, I think you should be compensated for that. And I don't know that that really was taken into consideration. The next chart showed a breakdown of managerial positions, the number of staff members supervised. On that chart, there's 12 positions that supervise less people than I do, and they are at least M10s, and a majority of them are M12s or higher. There are also positions that don't supervise any staff, and they are at least at an M10 pay range. An example of this is a special assistant to the director, which is an M10, going to be reclassified to an M12. No fiscal responsibilities, and supervises no one. This was a point that was brought up at the last meeting about the number of people that are supervised, and it was used as kind of a stepping stone as to why I shouldn't have this, because they use the examples that there was that many more, people that supervise more than I do. So I think that's, there's 7 positions that supervise less people than I do. It was pointed out in the response to my internal equity question I had about managerial positions placed higher, as you have different requirements and responsibilities than I do. First of all, there's positions that everywhere, in every level of the county, everybody's levels of requirements and responsibilities are different. I mean, that's why we have different job titles. Secondly, just last week, we had an issue with high dollar checks being sent out, some issues with them being received on time. We're talking one check was for $838,000 and another one for $3.3 million. When it was brought, when the controller's office asked me about these checks, I did some checking into them. I found the problem, and it was with a vendor that was used by both the state and us, and it came back to the vendor and the United States Postal Service. Since then, I've implemented a solution to safeguard against this happening again, and I think that that is one part of the responsibility that should be taken into consideration, because that's the other thing that was brought up about the lack of responsibility in my position. So I think those are a few of the things. One was compared to the outside positions of the state of Wisconsin. Employee Relations noted that the state of Wisconsin, 2 combined classifications equaled 1 of the printing services supervisor and shipping and mailing supervisor. So that would be a current position. So there was 2 combined there that were is what I'm doing right now. So then the appeal review conducted by Kate only looked at what is allowed in reallocation or reclassification policy, and which I don't believe really provides the opportunity for a complete and thorough analysis. Performance, volume of work, and personality are all measurables that aren't even allowed to be considered in this process. If performance is high, if the volume of work increases, and an employee represents Dane County in an exceptional manner, shouldn't that be taken into consideration? If not, then it doesn't seem to be sending a good message out of what we're trying to accomplish here at Dane County. I believe it should also be pointed out, it was stated in the reallocation process for employee relations, if they were to improve all the audits that come through the process of the county classification system, would be meaningless, and it would be beneficial, a financial burden on the county budget. From 2017 to 2019, there were 217 requests and only 11 denied. That's a 95% approval rating. So it's 5% really causing that big of a burden in some of these instances. There are also other changes made to the reallocation process that was on the bottom of the sheet, and it was done 4 days before we came in for this first appeal on October 7th, which I'm not really sure that, I had a fair chance to look at that stuff 4 days before I came in for this appeal the first time around. As far as the transparency, the appeal process was anything but that. I specifically asked in an email to Kate whether she would meet with employee relations or myself again after my meeting, and she said there are no plans to do so. Then immediately after the meeting with her that I had last week, she went directly and met with employee relations again. So I asked if the materials I provided were going to be shared with employee relations, or if employee relations information would be provided to me, to which she said, I don't know, I've only been asked to provide a recommendation to the Personnel and Finance Committee. So obviously, if it was in the packet, the materials that were given to employee relations because they wrote a response to it. I wasn't given any opportunity to review their materials, especially after specifically asking for them. Very little information about the process and what the steps for this were. In this situation, when a recommendation is requested by a committee of 2 to review 2 sides of the argument, I would have expected the recommendation to be shared to both parties, which it was not, at the same time or given directly to the committee. In this case, it was only shared with employee relations, who sent the recommendation attached to the agenda. I just don't feel like the appropriate actions were taken in this situation. According to what had been provided and considered, would it be fair to say that my position description is accurate? And if then, If the answer to that is yes, then I will work accordingly. I spent a lot of time preparing my materials in a very short time of manner, and they weren't even considered during the appeal process. My hope is that all of you on this committee will consider the aspects of this reallocation request, which included materials I have provided. Everything I provided may not fit into what I considered somewhat flawed standard review process of employee relations, but it certainly illustrates the disparity in the pay range that I'm in and in similar managers. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any questions for Mr. Kemp?
Pete, could you repeat that comment? You said you're one of 5 positions who are head of a division or department that are...
Supervised 12 or less.
No, that was a separate point. You made 2 different points.
That'd be, trying to think which chart that was on.
You were saying you're...
I'm one of 5 positions that are head of a division or department. I'm head of printing and services, is what I mean. Minimum 5 steps below the other positions. Everyone else is, I'm 8.
Of all of those 5, you're
Yes.
the only one that is an M8.
Yeah. And I believe if we pull that up, I have a chart that I can show it to you.
And then there are 12 positions who supervise, of individuals who are in higher positions than you, who supervise fewer people.
Yes. Yes, and they are at least an M10. The majority of them are M12 or higher.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do we have any questions after hearing that of staff or anyone else, or we'll go into a motion and discussion?
I'll move to my same motion from last time to approve just to get the ball rolling. Approve the appeal.
Motion by Chenoweth to, I guess, reverse the denial. Approve the untitled.
No second.
Second by Claus's discussion. Supervisor Claus, do you want to speak to the motion? I mean,
Yeah, I considered much of the information we saw last time. I appreciate the review again and the kind of take. I think some of the concerns we had last time was that the appeal appellant did not have a time to really kind of look at the analysis brought by staff. I think we got a good view of what his take was of the information last time. I still believe we are looking at someone who's doing equal amount of work for the positions that were brought to us by staff, and I believe his reallocation should be approved.
Chair Corrigan, did you do something?
I didn't have anything to add to that.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, on the motion to approve the untitled and override the denial. On that motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. There you go. Okay. Takes care of that. It'll probably be first and last time this committee is asked to act in that role.
It might be.
What's that?
That might be.
Well,
I think we just approved.
We'll wait just before this takes care of that, so. All right, action item number 2 is action 216, request to fill position vacant for more than 6 months in the Human Services Trauma Informed Care Coordinator, SW20 position. Moved by Stubbs.
Second.
Seconded by Nelson. Discussion or questions on this action item? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next is action item 204, request for waiver of bid, Safety Communications, First Watch software tool for the 911 center.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Chenoweth, seconded by Nelson. Discussion or questions on this item? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next, we have action item 217, request for exception to the county ordinance, chapter 20.14 for M3, Department of Administration Risk Management, managers and department head meeting.
Move to approve.
Moved by Chenoweth,
Second.
seconded by Corrigan. Discussion or questions on this action item? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next is action item 218, request for waiver of bid. The airport, providing services for the Visitors Information Center at the Dane County Regional Airport.
Move approval. Second.
Moved by Nelson, seconded by
Clausius.
Clausius. I was getting discussion and questions on this.
Question.
Supervisor Chenoweth.
Thank you very much. My question is, can somebody out there can kind of tell us what this is, why is this needs to have this action taken?
Sure. The Destination Madison, which was previously known as the Greater Madison Visitor and Convention Bureau, is uniquely qualified to staff the visitor information booth down in the baggage claim area. As passenger traffic increases, so do the requests for services and information about the community, about what the community has to offer. They also provide assistance in passengers gaining access to ground transportation. They're the eyes and ears for the airport down in that, kind of an extension of staff. They do provide 7 rotating staff members with 2 fill-ins. They cover all the holidays, and they provide many hours at the airport each year.
Thank you. Is there any service like this right now that's being provided?
It is being provided by the same organization presently.
So is this an extension of the original?
The current agreement ends at the end of this calendar year, so this would pick up with a new agreement starting 1st of January.
Thank you very much.
What's the original contract? Was it the same dollar amount or is this an increase?
It's a 2.5% increase.
Okay. So what was the last contract amount?
Just bear with me 1 second. So 56,600 approximately is the current, and it's going to 57,693.
Oh, years. Got it.
Okay. Any other questions? You guys have
I don't want to
questions?
seem like a smartass, but will they give information out about Sun Prairie, Stoughton, Mount Horeb, other places in Dane County besides Madison?
My understanding is that they do several fan trips to the entire catchment area each year. So they visit places that, yes, it's not just Madison, it's the surrounding area. It's the entire catchment area of the airport.
Thanks.
Thank you. Those are the questions.
They got have directions to Sun Prairie.
And Milton.
You can't get this still.
With that, on the motion to approve the request for waiver of bid, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. The last action item is approval of bills, and that report is in place here.
Move approval.
Moved
Second.
by Corrigan, seconded by Chenoweth to recommend approval. Discussion or questions on it? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right, now we're on to the section F, which is the 2020 budget. And I just want to note in our packets of amendments, following that are several memos from department heads regarding where they're at with their equity plans, and I think that was done at the request of Chair Corrigan. So I just wanted to alert you to those, that we have a few of those provided here.
Question.
3 or 4, yes.
Would we be voting to include it in the budget, or it will be in the budget?
It's just a simple report to the Committee of Work also.
And, Mr. Chair, there were 2 different categories of updates on the equity plans. We approved a resolution recently to have all the committees consider that the equity, whether they have filed an equity plan, each department, when they're considering the budget, and that is a question for the departments, and they've been answering that in committees as they've gone through the process. Supervisor Stubbs had sponsored that resolution. This request was to give an update to us about where the departments are on their equity plans and their sustainability plans. They're both areas that the county board office has, we've highlighted. We have staff working in those areas, and I just wanted to make sure we were getting updates on what that was.
And unfortunately, we still have departments that have not turned in their equity plans, which is a problem, and I'm hoping Greg could help us get those equity plans turned in, because it should not be optional. It is mandated, because how can you report back to your committees and to this community about something that is so near and dear to not just me, but it is a conversation if you will not turn in a simple equity plan. We can't help you. And we've developed an entire office, the Office of Equity and Inclusion, that is one of their main goals. So I'm hoping in this process that we get those equity plans turned in. It's critical.
Anything else on that? All right, so how I'm going to proceed with this section of the agenda is we have several departments for which the Personnel and Finance Committee has oversight. So this is an opportunity for public input regarding the proposed 2020 budget. I don't know if we have anybody left in the public here, but what my plan was to allow for, as we go through each department, to let anybody wishing to address the committee regarding that area of the budget to speak. I don't have any registrants, so I'll just go down the list of departments. We only have a few amendments, so that first department on our list here is County Treasurer. Is there anybody here from the public wishing to address the committee regarding that area of the budget? Do we have anybody left that isn't staff here? I don't think so. I guess I'll just... Oh, we have... You're also staff, but okay.
I guess so.
No me. All right, so hearing from no one in that area, we don't have any amendments to that area of the budget.
Are we going to have the treasurer that would give an update on his budget?
Yes, I'm sorry, it's tomorrow night, we're not hearing from other departments, but yes, you are correct. So, Adam, do you want to address the committee regarding your budget?
In our budget, it's a net zero change. We did increase expenditures, 10,000 to meet our training, our tax bill printing, our collection software maintenance, and our bank service charges. The way that's offset is by the increase 10,000 in our investment income over the past year with the increase of everything. So that's the change with our expenditures and revenues. As far as equity, I included that in this thing here. I know that I spoke briefly with the staff today, and we'll go over it a little bit more as time goes on. We had turnover in the staff, and so it's good to refresh everyone's memory in the office on that. Sustainability, we did, I don't think I attached that with the other because I see them as two different items, but I can provide that if you'd like. The only thing that I have as far as sustainability is that when we redid our space, we got like a new fridge, and I said every 4 years we would test our efficiency. So we're still at 84%.
Did you get a smart fund grant?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
what was that for?
That was for the fridge, the new fridge in the
For
break room
funds.
that's shared between us and planning. So that's all. Questions?
Questions for the treasurer? Thank you. Okay, Moving on to Department of Administration. Greg, give us an overview.
Absolutely. So we do have an equity plan that's on file, and have been working with other departments and making sure that they get their plans in. So appreciate the heads up from Supervisor Stokes. So we do have a memo that is in your packet, and I'll just briefly go over some of that. Last year, the department began requiring all hiring managers in the county to meet with myself and the Office of Equity and Inclusion to go over those specific job duties of that management position, and also take a look at how we were recruiting to make sure that we're bringing in people of color within the management ranks. It's one area that's significantly lacking within the county. When we look at the percentage of people of color diversity within our management group, that is one area that we could definitely improve upon. So we have pushed departments in the direction of hiring people of color at the management level, and have made some good progress in the last year on that. We began also with a new website, which you may have seen. The county has a new website. It actually translates into 20 different languages. So that's another part for our equity. One of the unique things that we're doing this year is we're going to need a receptionist in the Department of Administration because we're remodeling. And so we have allocated funds for an LTE receptionist. One of the things that we want to do with that position is use it as a job training opportunity. We've got such great expertise in all kinds of different areas in the Department of Administration. And so if we can work with people of color to bring up their skills and eventually move them into county positions, would be another avenue for us to meet our equity goals. With respect to sustainability, the department continues to make improvements. We're replacing water fixtures with water-saving ones, LED lighting, scanning of documents. We also, in this budget, is the first request for electric vehicles for the county. Printing and Services has requested 2. And we also are requesting funding for charging stations at points around the county to encourage members of the public to adopt electric vehicles. So for our budget, within the operating budget, we conform to the county executive's budget guidelines, so there's not a lot of changes there. One of the big changes that you'll see is in the operating budget, Department of Administration, we're moving the weapons screening. I should say we're requesting to move the weapons screening to the Sheriff's Office. We feel that the Sheriff's Office is probably more skilled in supervising the weapons screening staff and can provide the support that's needed for that. So that is one of the requests. Consolidated Food Service is requesting $155,000 to add 2 new food service helpers, which would actually serve the inmates and supervise those inmates that are doing the serving. That is something that the Department of Correction is requesting. The Division of Information Management would like to add a system administrator to work on security for the county's IT department. That position would start in April, so it's an $88,000 request. Moving to our capital budget, just hit some of the big ticket items on that, and we'll go through all of them. There are some significant smaller requests as well. Within information management, $350,000 for the automation project, which continues to upgrade the parking, payroll, and financial systems. $175,000 for computer equipment replacements. $400,000 for cyber security improvements. $350,000 to continue the build out of our disaster recovery site. $200,000 for network upgrades, and $150,000 to continue the website redesign as we move from department to department, changing up the website. Within the administration, as I mentioned, $88,000 for the purchase of 2 electric vehicles, $305,000 for 15 level 2 charging stations that'll be at county facilities and county parks. Moving to facilities management, we had that power outage, obviously, this last year, and so we want to address that and make sure that we're prepared should that happen again. $500,000 for a new generator that's going to power the city-county building. Should something happen and there's some type of disaster, we want to make sure that government can continue to operate. And so that's real important for us.
Pardon me, is that generator replacement or?
There's
or
currently 3
added?
smaller generators that power the city-county building in different areas of the city-county building. So what we want to do is have one main generator that will power the whole city-county building. Because the 3 generators would be hard to remove, they're down in what's called the sub-basement, way deep underneath the city-county building. We would continue to maintain those and use them as backup should something happen to the $500,000 generator. One of the other things that we found out was that when the power goes out, the elevators stop. And luckily this last time nobody was on the elevator or elevators, but if it were to happen again, we want to make sure that those elevators go down to the ground floor and let people out. So that's a request for $150,000. At the Dane County Courthouse, there's a lead chiller repair tear down, which is chillers provide your air conditioning for the building. Some of the others is a $980,000. We've been working with Human Services for security improvements at the job center. We find that security is extremely important for not only our employees, but also the people that visit. $420,000 for carpet at the job center and $203,000 for our South Madison office, which is a rental facility, but the lease requires that we're in charge of the HVAC. That's kind of a budget roundup. I can take any questions that you might have.
Questions?
Where will the new generator be located?
So we're still taking a look at that, but our initial thoughts are that we would need to use 2 parking spaces currently where the facilities management vehicles are parked. So it's kind of, if you know, it's back in that corner. And 2 of the vehicles then would move to the ramp.
So in the garage?
In the garage.
Okay. Is that vented outside then?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. The elevators, so that 150,000, that's something to both all elevators?
So that's all elevators, Carroll Street and the bank of 4 main elevators. One of the bank, it would also continue to power one of the main bank elevators, so that should the power go out, there is still an elevator that'll go up and down.
So if the power goes out, and the generators kick on and can power everything, then why do we need this? Is that something?
To be able to power all 4 elevators on the generator would take a lot of the capacity of the generator.
Okay.
So
Right.
that's why we don't do that.
Okay. I have one more question. The cooler for the courthouse.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
The chiller was,
It was like 300,000?
yeah,
And that's for the courthouse, though, right?
$125,000.
Okay.
That's a
And
10-year tear down that needs to be done to it. So every 10 years, they tear it down and repair it.
So it lasts 10 years?
Yeah, it's been, I think we might be past 10 years now.
Yeah, it's been almost, it'll be 15 by 2020.
I believe we did the other chiller last year, so this is the next one.
Stuff like that will last longer.
Well, it's kind
Well, it
of,
will.
it's kind of like a rebuild, really, not a
Right.
full-on replacement. So you tear it down, replace certain components, and some of what's there remains.
But they only last 10 or 15 years.
Until they need a tear down, which is like a high level of maintenance to it where they replace components.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Other questions, Barry?
Okay. Thank you. Greg, as of last week, we still do not have the equity plans from the Clerk of Courts, Joint Board of Health, the medical examiners, Veteran Services Planning and Development, and land information.
So if I can answer that, land information is within the Department of Administration.
Okay,
So that's
you.
actually, yeah, so that's covered under that one. And Department of Health, I spoke to, I think, somebody, it might have been Wes, about the fact that they had submitted a plan, but it just had not been, it's either not on the website yet, or hasn't been processed, but they do have a plan that's gone through their department.
Clerk
And I
reports.
did reach out to every single department that was on that list that you provided me.
And hopefully by the time the budget is passed,
I would hope so.
we'll have an update, all flags should be turned in, or else I will be speaking out again.
And I hope you do.
Thanks. Thanks for your help, Greg.
Other questions? I have a couple quick ones. The generator, are they exercised at different times so we know that basically there's test runs so that when there is a crisis or loss of power, we know it's going to work?
Yeah, there's actually a requirement within the code that they do be exercised frequently. And so those are exercised. We just had kind of, at the last power outage, I think because the three are really, or two of them are really close together, they were creating enough heat that they were going off on high temperature because the engines couldn't cool down. And so that's why we lost, I think, the 911 generator at that time. And then we were able to get one of them back up and running fairly quickly. The generator for the jail is up in the penthouse, so that wasn't affected.
Then my last question is in regards to the chiller, is there an opportunity there with that rebuild to potentially use smart funds for making energy efficient, more energy efficient?
Yeah, that's one of the things we thought of, but one of the ideas behind the smart fund is not to use that money for regular maintenance of equipment that's going to be maintained by the county anyway. And so I think that's one of the rules that the smart fund has in place.
But is there something we could purchase that could be more energy efficient?
Right.
Or is that looked at? Because I think that would qualify.
That's a good point.
What fuel do they run on? Is it coal or timber?
It's coal. We've got a guy down there that's shoveling. He's an African employee.
Is it natural gas or?
So we have some that run on diesel and then also natural gas. And there's, obviously natural gas is more reliable should there be some type of disaster. But fuel oil is, we're able to get trucks with fuel oil as well.
Okay,
Not to be a smart ass.
not to be a smart ass, but a little levity is required.
So, but the new one, what will that be powered?
We're still talking about that. There's a lot of different benefits to going with natural gas, but there's also benefits to running a diesel generator as well. So we're trying to weigh those out.
Okay, I can ask you more about it later.
There's no other questions. Let's see. I'm trying to decide, do we hear from the department heads and then go into the amendments? And so we'll take care of that, and then we'll take care of the amendments after. All right. So then next on our list is library. So Tracy.
Good evening. I'm Tracy Harold, I'm the Director of Dane County Library Service, and our budget is in compliance with the county exec's requests. And I put together just a brief overview of our sustainability and racial equity and social justice plan and kind of where we're at. I might start with the sustainability first. So not a whole lot has changed since we've put the new bookmobile on the road and moved into our new location at 1874 South Stoughton Road. We still discard the majority of our weeded materials, our retired materials, to Better World Books, which is a worldwide company that resells and donates library materials all over the world. So we're not putting them in the landfill. We also have improved gas mileage and reduced emissions on the new bookmobile, and I think we'll enjoy that for a while. It is a diesel vehicle. The Dream Bus as well is a diesel vehicle, is an unleaded vehicle. And we've noticed improved access to our bookmobile and Dreammobile routes from Stoughton Road, from our new location. It seems to be more centralized with regards to where we go in the county. We do have solar panels on our building. While I don't believe they provide all of the power at the building, they do offset any carbon-based use that we reuse. So that has been helpful. We, at the beginning of last year, joint purchased an undercarriage wash with Emergency Management, who we share 2 of our 4 stalls, our 4 bays with, at the Stoughton Road location. And that helps both of us with regards to maintaining our vehicles, their CV1 and other emergency vehicles, and our Dream Bus and Bookmobile. So we hope to get a lot more life out of our vehicles, especially with the ability to wash salt and debris off of the bottoms of those vehicles. A lot of our staff use the bus passes provided by the county, so that is really a huge benefit. We have some folks who come actually all the way from the west side who use the bus passes, and it's really helpful. And then, I'm a big proponent of mobile services because it does allow us to meet people where they are without necessarily having to invest in an entire footprint. And it lets us be a little bit flexible in terms of determining where the best spots for bricks and mortar may be. So that is also a benefit. So moving on to our equity plan, we do have an equity plan with Office of Equity and Inclusion, and have actually worked with them on several projects that are coming up. The first and foremost is probably in preparation for our Owl Creek service, which we do with the Bookmobile, and with the Dream Bus service, was working with Madison Public in order to kind of establish a fine and fee forgiveness procedure, so that we are able to look at individuals' fines and fees if they were overdue fines or missing material, and taking a look at how we can reconcile that for a patron so that they can continue to use library service throughout Dane County. We do maintain a weekly presence at the Job Center. Our outreach librarian goes there once a week. That was originally funded through a grant, an LSTA grant. And we've just kept up the practice because it's a really great way to continue and establish new library cards at the Job Center. We've celebrated our 3rd anniversary of service to Owl Creek, which kind of started the whole impetus for the Dream Bus and outreach to the Madison neighborhoods. So that's been very, very exciting, and we have a steady cohort of 5 to 15 kids who visit us every week from 3 to 3:30, and that has continued through the summer and through the winter. So we're really thrilled with that. With preparation for our Dream Bus launch, which just happened this past April, we did work with Office of Equity and Inclusion and Employee Relations in focusing on trying to hire LTEs who are people of color and who had some Spanish language capability. And so I'm happy to say that both of our clerks on the Dream Bus one is bilingual and of Mexican descent, and the other is an Allied Drive resident, and we're just really, really happy to have them on board, and it's made our Dream Bus outreach, I think, all that more successful and approachable. Moving on to our part of our office, part of our plan that we have turned into to equity and inclusion has been to increase our staff diversity, to launch the Dream Bus, and to establish a project that's county-wide funded by Beyond the Page. And so we have kind of built on some of the staff training that we've already done. This year we were able to attend the Wisconsin Library Association conference. They had a pre-conference that was paid for by the Wisconsin Humanities Council, the Wisconsin Library Association Foundation, and the Wisconsin, there's one other entity that helped pay for it, and I can't remember who they are. But this was a free pre-conference that I could take the entire staff to. And it was Ijioma's Oluo's discussion on So You Want to Talk About Race, and that was a really great start to the conference. It was a great continuation of our staff's training, and has really informed our approach to our county-wide project called the Ripple Project, which is being funded by Beyond the Page, and that is including a staff training component and a community-wide programming component. That is scheduled for 2021, and we are working with the Office of Equity and Inclusion as well as the Dane County Extension on putting together the plan for that year. So, so that's kind of what we've been up to. And one more thing I'd like to point out with regards to the Dream Bus, to Supervisor Stubbs' request is that we are doing a pilot at Bridge Lake Point, Winona Community Center, every other Friday for the rest of the year, which we had not yet been included in the budget, but that's something we're talking to Madison about with regards to their reimbursement of us for our Dream Bus service. And so we've been excited to partner with them and start. We've already had 2 stops, and we'll have 2 more in November and 2 more in December. So,
Any questions for
any
Tracy?
questions?
I'm happy.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's pretty natural fit.
Any questions for Tracy?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on our list is Land Information Office. Anything outside of your...
Yeah, so the Land Information Officer, following the county executive guidelines and just continuing on, no real changes in that budget at all.
Thank you. And debt service?
The budget includes all the payments that will come due in 2020.
All right. Miscellaneous appropriation.
Well, the highlight there, I think classified as one of the, in that category, is the retirement enhancement program is included in that. So there's $600 or $500,000 to begin funding that program for 2020.
Any questions for Chuck on those things? All right, general column.
Yeah, there's miscellaneous, like General County has things like utility aid, so there was a little bit of increase there.
All right, so we will now move on to operating amendments under those departments. And we have PNF 1 has been introduced by Chair Corrigan. Increase expenditures and position authority. Chair, do you want to speak to it?
Sure. This recommendation is an outgrowth of our work on data-driven justice. You know, the county board staff, Colleen Clark-Bernhardt, works out of our office, and we have a staff person who works with Colleen, who's actually, she's employed by us, but she reports to the Criminal Justice Council, and Naomi Reyes, who is our data person into doing that work. And she and Colleen have done so much work on data and creating the dashboard for the Criminal Justice Council that we've got so much more information about it. And we're really ready to move on to some next steps on using that data for being able to identify needs early in the system and trying to better address people's needs. And one of the first ideas that they've come up with, as they've done work on familiar faces in the system, people who are repeatedly interacting with criminal justice and interacting with it probably before that with our social service agencies. But the idea is when to have an app so to notify a caseworker when someone is arrested. So and that's, but there are other ideas in the pipeline that we're going to have to be doing, really doing to make good use of our data that we're producing through the criminal, through our data-driven justice. So this recommendation is to add a staff person into our Department of Administration to deal with the information technology to help with creating systems that we can better utilize that data. And I think it's something that could really lead to a lot of successes using this data.
Evelyn, can you describe a little bit what you would envision as sort of, I guess, how you'd summarize a success, what would be an idea of success in that, using the data to deliver?
In this specific example that I gave, that you'd have somebody that, if somebody had a caseworker right now, they often aren't, the caseworker doesn't know when someone gets arrested, and there needs to be that kind of information and quick response and communication with the person to help them, to be able to provide services and to kind of know the needs of an individual when they interact with the system, and better be able to coordinate all of our services in the county rather than being siloed right now.
So breaking down the silence. Okay, great. Thanks. All right. We are considering taking these things in without acting on them. Is that so? All right. So that takes care of our one and only operating budget amendment. So we will move on to capital. The first one listed here, I had an email earlier today from Supervisor Danner indicating she wishes to withdraw this one. I don't have an explanation why. She was hoping to be able to get here to provide us, but I know she had a tight schedule, so all I know is it's being withdrawn, so it is not before us since it's withdrawn by the primary sponsor. So that leaves P&F capital item 2, and I should indicate here correction on the sponsor should be listed as me. Miles?
No, I think there was a change. Supervisor Erickson told me.
Well, there was a change, but you guys said it was going to be interviewed, so that's fine.
Oh,
Okay.
Then it was for your affiliation.
Correct.
With Bayview, and that is
correct, but it was decided that Supervisor Miles is going
we'll close that loop.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
I'm available for questions.
So, yes.
Sweet. Nice job, Joe.
Exactly.
Are they going to be calling you a different name now, too?
I get called lots of things.
But anyhow, I'm sure if you want to address it.
Yeah, so what this is, the location is the Bayview Community or Bayview Foundation. It's located in the Triangle neighborhood or section of the city, which is bounded by Park Street, Regent Street, and West Washington Avenue. And most of that is CDA, Madison CDA housing. And Midway Asian Foods is on one corner. The Select Hospital is, across the street from Meritor, and the other point, another point of the triangle, is the Bayview community. And just Bayview's right now 101 units of low-income housing. 4 of those are market rate. It's a private organization, so it's not affiliated with CDA at all. It's a community of color, lots of diversity, many immigrants, also many families with children. So whenever you go there are lots of kids running around. And there's a community center in the middle of it. And one significant feature, I think, of this location is that its proximity to downtown. So a lot of cities across the country, people are being priced out, even affordable housing, let alone low-income housing. If it's located near a downtown central area, it's just simply unaffordable. So to me, that's another key aspect of this, location. Also the location, I have to say, is right across the street from a park, which also has community gardens. So residents in this neighborhood or community could take advantage of those options as well. So what had happened with this, they'd applied for the county's affordable housing fund, and I think there's some confusion with maps. This location is close to a building project called 820, which is on Park Street, right across from St. Mary's Hospital. So in that process, a map that came out showed that Bayview is just outside that, circle, but as the process went through, the proximity was determined by, I guess, perimeter. So we talked about this a lot. And if that geographical location, feature, characteristic, or condition was not part of the selection process, then Bayview would have come in like number 3 out of all the things that we just approved earlier. And because of that geographic requirement, Bayview wasn't included. So, so they also received a grant from the City of Madison, the Affordable Housing Fund. So again, I felt, my options were vote against those other projects or up into all that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted those to go through as well. But this is a project that I think is worthy of the county's Affordable Housing Fund. The total project is somewhere in the range of like 20 to 29 million, and it's going to be funded by tax credits. So the wording here says that it's contingent upon the tax credits, in terms of financing. And this would be, I think, key to that moving forward, to have the commitment in the City of Madison. I mentioned the community center. I think that's still going to be a separate funding, fundraising campaign or capital campaign for that. But again, the units will increase. Right now there's currently 101 units, and they're 40 to 45 years old and don't have air conditioning, are very small, and I think the upgrade is worthy of our attention. But it will also increase the number of units, and also something that it will do is it will make larger units available to families. If this were to go through, it would free up more 3-bedroom units while maintaining some handicap accessible units, which would be brand new, and which would also allow seniors to stay in the community. And that's something that you see in this neighborhood, is that there are people that live there for 20 and 30 years. Any other questions? I could go on and on.
Questions? I have a couple, so reserves. Well, one for you, one for Chuck. You described the perimeter issue, the geographical criteria, but did you tell me at one time that there's that some of the property might be deeded to the city for road right away?
Right. So
and when is that supposed to happen?
Well, I'm not sure when that will happen, but with the City of Madison, looking at this project, and also part of the plan, because there's the Monona Bay Neighborhood Association plan. I live in the Monona Bay neighborhood, and the Triangle is part of that neighborhood, and they just finished a plan, and part of that plan includes I'll call it a street. It's kind of a through street that would go from Regent Street down to West Washington Avenue, and it would be, hopefully it will have lots of parking. And personally, I'd like to see speed humps there. The people in Bayview, residents of Bayview, were not enthusiastic about having a street. Originally, when the first map came out, it had actually, I think, a few more streets. That was a proposal. And where Bayview is located, literally right in when you hear about the old Greenbush neighborhood that was torn down. And that was basically a grid. And when urban renewal came through, it was changed. So the people who live there right now like it the way it is. You kind of have to find it. It's kind of secluded. It's not. It doesn't have streets crossing through it. Anyway, what the city settled on, with input from residents, was to have a single street again running from Regent Street through to West Washington. And it'll be fairly narrow. I think fire trucks could get through there. But with that, some of that land for that street will be taken, I believe, from the CDA housing and then also Bayview. So based on that, the perimeter of Bayview would extend to be further away than it is now. So that's what I think you were referring to.
Mm-hmm. But it had that road right away changed than present today.
Well, it would have been a little further
Still trying to put it outside.
Yeah, which I may have put it outside, but it depends on how, the issue is, how do you measure it? If you're measuring from the center of a property to the center of another property, how long is that versus measuring from the perimeters of the properties? So if you looked at it the latter way, going by the perimeters, then it's obviously would fall within that distance, which is what happened.
Right, but the point of my question is just that absent that, it's a very strong project.
Oh, exactly, yes, it is.
Question for Chuck. In the resolution language quoted in the motion section of the amendment, should we have a date by which, or amount of time by which Bayview would have, so it's contingent upon the project securing low-income tax credits and/or other financing sources? Should we follow that with a by?
That might be a good idea. I mean, I would suggest giving them maybe 2 cycles of tax credit applications. So there's, Bayview, with the WIDA application, they get points for having public participation. So having this amendment approved, if it's included in the budget, it'll be November 11th. Your tax credit application for the 2019/20 cycle is due about a month from there. So they'll be able to get those points. But sometimes it takes a couple of times. It's very competitive at the WIDA, even more competitive than our system is right now. And this one might be challenging because they're not creating a lot of new units. There's a lot of rehabilitation, tearing down and completely replacing, I wouldn't call it rehab, and they're replacing 101 units, but they're adding about 29 or something. So maybe by June of 2021 or something like that. So that would, the cycle goes, the announcements are made for the tax credits in April following the app. So April of 2020 would be cycle number 1, April of 2020, or 2020 and April of 2021 would give them two attempts.
Most of the time, I like that language.
Yeah, we'll do that.
End of June 2021 would be fine, I think. There's going to be a similar one that we look at tomorrow, since we just went through that for the salvation.
Yeah, that one might be a little different because that, and I would just, it's not on here today, but that has a housing, but it has many, many other components the county could potentially participate in the shelter side of the Salvation Army project.
Okay, so that doesn't have the same.
And so it had, it's a little different than this. Is strictly residential, and they have the funding for the community center coming from somewhere else, but the bulk of the cost of the Salvation Army one is really more on the shelter facilities. The county may want to help advance that.
Okay. Thank you.
There's a typo
I see that.
in the motion. It's 1.3 million, not 1.3.
Right.
That would be significant.
Not to be technical, but, that could be a problem later.
30.
The numbers at the bottom show
It's at the
1.3
bottom,
million.
it's
So
the-
we'll get that switched.
All right. There's no other questions on that. That takes care of the budget. So section G, future meeting items and dates. We meet again tomorrow at 5:30 to consider departments under ENR, Public Works, zoning land regulation, and HHN to adopt public reviews. So that'll be a marathon meeting. So, and of course, we have the 30th, and then next week, the 5th. So if there's no questions or discussion on that, anything else is allowed under law.
Motion to adjourn, I so move.
Moved by Nelson, seconded by anyone?
I'll second.
Chenoweth/Clausius.
Sorry. I was asking.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
All right.